Boom. All right, let's get back to it. Hey guys, I have 4 subscribers subscribe to the video. I'm trying to reach a huge milestone of 5 subscribers, nigga. I'm outside. All right, here we go. Welcome back. Drive with me. No effort. I don't edit my videos. I don't do thumbnails. I just post stuff because honestly, most of the internet's fake. I'm not about to like kill myself over this stuff. Anyway, I want to talk about today white supremacy. I'm gonna make this very simple for people. In a very simplistic definition of white supremacy is when rich people convince poor people that they have the same values because they have the same skin color. Let me say that again. White supremacy is when rich people convince poor people that they have the same values because they have the same skin color. Now, if you want a more complicated educational definition of white supremacy is a hierarchical system that says that a certain hegemonic white ideal is the standard, and the further you are from that hegemonic ideal, the less advantages you have in society, right? So remember, underneath white supremacy, it's not white on top, black on bottom. It's a pyramid. It's a certain kind of white person is on top, and the further you are from that white hegemonic ideal, the less advantages you have in society. So for instance, when the country was founded, the country was founded in 1776. All white men couldn't vote until 1790. Poor white men didn't have the rights to vote. And even it wasn't until 1856 that the last state made it to where white men didn't have to own land to vote, right? So white supremacy isn't just this white on top, black on bottom, or white on top, non-white on bottom. It's a hierarchical system that says you're supposed to live a certain kind of way. And it's a system that says that white people live the best or live the best than any other group of people. But ultimately speaking, it's literally just wealthy people convincing poor people that they have the same skin or that they have the same values because their skin color is the same. That's all it is. White supremacy is hilarious. If you ask me, if you see it in real, well, it's hilarious when it's not actively trying to kill you, right? When it's not actively trying to destroy your life, it's actually hilarious to see in real time. Particularly these days, because you have all these white people running around going, we built this country. Hey, newsflash, guys. The people who built this country ain't running around talking about how they built the country because they're too busy running the country, right? These poor white people who claim like we built this country and white people have a higher IQ on average than black people. Listen, the people who have high IQs are not running around talking about how they have higher IQs than people with different skin color, right? Because that's not a high IQ activity. Like, nobody cares. Like, okay, so what? Right? Even if it was true, which is not, because IQ tests don't necessarily measure intelligence, and there's no proof that IQ tests measure intelligence. The whole purpose of this, I say this all the time, white supremacy ain't actually for non-white people. White supremacy is for poor white people to be convinced of an idea. It's a way for the ruling class to rule without opposition. It's very simple. That's what white supremacy is for. It's so that the ruling class can rule without opposition. If you can convince a large swath of your population that, hey, your real issue are the immigrants, your real issues are the blacks, your real issues are you know, Muslims. Your real issues are people who look like you, right? It's basic in-group, out-group fear dynamics, right? That, why is this nigga pick a lane, bro? Sorry, I drive with me, right? White supremacy, it's just a hierarchical system, right? So going back to that, another part of that is, this is why, again, it's a hierarchical system that says a certain kind of white person is the ideal. This is why if you're fat and white, America ain't that nice to you. This is why if you're disabled and white, America ain't that nice to you. This is why if you're poor and white, America ain't that nice to you. This is why if you're uneducated and white, America ain't that nice to you. This is why if you're single, this is why if you're a white woman, right, America ain't that nice to you. Why? Because white supremacy says that a wealthy, land-owning, in good health, intelligent white man is the ideal. And so what white supremacy does is it takes all the characteristics of their ideal and they perpetuate the idea that their ideal is the standard and how it's supposed to be. But if you want to get down to the root of it, and I could do a whole nother video on this, whiteness really ain't real, bro. Right? Like, if you had to define blackness, you could, right? Blacks clearly aren't Africans, right? It clearly describes a certain group of people from a certain regional place in the world that has a certain culture. Black culture is very different than the many African, Western African country cultures and tribes and different stuff like that, right? It's funny because blackness only exists because of white supremacy. Right? Like it's hilarious. It's hilarious when white people complain about black people, because it's like, we didn't really immigrate here, my nigga. Like y'all wanted to profit off of us, and then we fought for our freedom. It's not my fault y'all brought us here, right? But it's kind of funny because, like, when it comes to things like when it comes to whiteness itself, whiteness has always changed over time, right? Like, what it meant to be white in 2024 is not the same thing that it meant to be white in 1950 or the 1930s or the 1800s, right? And it's just really, it's really kind of like interesting because, and maybe I will do a video about this. I used to think that, like, even white culture wasn't a thing, but I've changed my stance on that. But when you look at whiteness itself, right? Whiteness is the non-race. White people don't have to engage with race until they have to engage with other races. That is the only time white people engage with race, right? If you were to ask white people, what does it mean to be white? We'll be able to tell you. Because there's nothing definitive about whiteness. Whiteness is whatever the hegemonic ideal wants to say whiteness is. So if whiteness includes Italians this decade, but didn't a few decades ago, it's what it is. If whiteness included Irish people, but it didn't a few decades ago, that's what it is, right? If whiteness used to include Jewish people, but now it doesn't include Jewish people, or vice versa, that's what it is. There's nothing definitive about whiteness. White supremacy is just rich people convincing poor people that they have the same values because they have the same skin color. That's all white supremacy is. That's it. And it's funny because America has never dealt with white supremacy, and it's very interesting. It's going to be very interesting what happens going forward, because one of I think that humanity in real time is facing an existential crisis, because what's happened is that we have leaders who rule in power, right? We have a system that says we the people, we're the ones who give our government power, right? We elect the officials and we give them power. The problem is if you do not have an electorate that is informed, that is educated, and that has moral courage, when we elect these people into power, they're just going to rule in self-interest. And so society is at a interesting, along with the fact, and this is my own personal thesis, is that, and I think I talked about this in another video, to be an American is to be socialized into cognitive dissonance. So for instance, the United States of America is a place that says all men are created equal while upholding white supremacist ideology the entire time, right? All people are created equal, but we own slaves. All people are created equal, but we're going to genocide the indigenous people, all in the name of white supremacy. And if you don't believe me, just go back and read the writings of the 1800s Manifest Destinies. They said it outright. The purpose of Manifest Destiny is to spread the white man's ideas, values, and social institutions. They genuinely believe that white is right. The way white people do things is the right thing. But here's the thing. What's white? What does it mean to be white? What is whiteness? Right? What is whiteness? And how is whiteness different from being European? I can tell you how being black is different than being from Africa. Africans can tell you how being from Africa is different than being a black American. However, nobody can tell us, right? Or people have a hard time telling us what is whiteness? How is it defined, right? To be white is to be a part of the non-race. It's to be a part of the race of people who does not have to engage with race, because the ruling class mostly is white in this country. And it was, and you're like, it's so funny, like watching white supremacists. Like, white supremacists will give themselves credit for like abolishing slavery, but like doesn't want to talk about how like the expansion of slavery. It's like white people were the first people to outlaw slavery. It's like, yeah, after like centuries of like enslaving people, like, and it wasn't because like you're good, moral, upstanding people. It was because of like motherfuckers forced you to, right? But yeah, remember that for the rest of your life. White supremacy is rich people convincing poor people that they have the same ideals because they have the same skin color, and you don't. You are a poor or middle class white person donating money to a billionaire's campaign because you believe in whiteness, in preserving whiteness. That's how stupid white supremacy is. In practice, white supremacy always leads to the majority of white people acting against their own self-interest. You, working paycheck to paycheck, will donate your labor, your money, your energy to a billionaire. By the way, any policy a billionaire is running on, he can solve that issue by shedding his wealth. But because of white supremacy, right? Poor folks are upset about the immigrants. They're upset about what's going on in Israel. They're upset about they're upset about all these things that like has nothing to do with your self-interest. Where it's like, no, you don't need to be focused on what's going on in the Middle East. Somewhat. You don't need to be focused on what's going on with the immigrants. No. You, white person, should be down at your local courthouse dealing with corrupt judges. You, white person, should be down at your local state legislator dealing with corrupt politicians. But you're not, because you want to preserve whiteness. And you have told yourself that being white is being American. When in actuality, because all men are created equal, right? Because America said all men are created equal, as long as you're born here, you're an American. You don't need to be white. And until you're ready to engage with that level of cognitive dissonance, where whiteness is not synonymous with being an American, and whiteness is not right because it's white, until you're ready to deal with that, you're going to have issues. But hey, I'm at my guy. Pick him up, take him where he needs to go. I'll see y'all next time. Subscribe. I need 1 more subscribers for 5 subscribers. Peace.